welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. We're at the Olympics at Paris 2024 on the bench with India's Olympian Abhinav Bindra. Abhinav, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. You know, you've been here for what, close to a month now?
I'm almost a Parisian.
You're almost a Parisian. Can you speak French yet?
Bonjour.
Bonjour to you too. But what has it been like for you? I mean, you ran with the torch as well. What's the experience been like for you as a participant and an observer?
Well, I've been part of, my role here is being part of the IOC's Athletes Commission, and just being part of the Games has been pretty spectacular. I think the Games have been a massive, massive success. I've been to a few events. The enthusiasm in every field of play that I visited has been amazing. And just the visual spectacle that we are witnessing, you know, these are images for posterity. I mean, the beach volleyball at the Eiffel Tower, the images of the Olympic flame.
Yeah.
It's just been spectacular. I went to fencing at the Grand Palais. It was the most incredible event that I've attended. And I think really the beach volleyball venue is probably the most amazing sports venue on the planet at the moment. You
know, since you're talking about the highlights of Paris 2024, in many ways, the Paris Olympics have been an experiment for the IOC as well as for the Olympic Games to try and see how the Games can be more sustainable. They don't end up being white elephants for the host country as well. There has been some backlash on some of the measures, but on balance, how would you rate what we've seen?
Well, this is the start of a new era, and these are different games, sort of games that we've never witnessed before. So obviously it's a change, and there'll always be comparisons, but I think all the initiatives have been extremely successful. I think Paris 2024, the organizing committee has just invested in one new facility, and everything else has been already existing infrastructure or temporary facilities. And
people don't understand how unusual that is for the Olympics, right?
But I think the most amazing thing has been the urbanization of sport, how sport has come to the people, how sport has come into the urban landscape, and that has been spectacular to watch. If you go and see the Concorde project, where you know, we've seen 3x3 basketball, skateboarding, BMX, breaking, it's just the most amazing atmosphere that you'll find. And for me, just being part of the Games, these are my first Games not as a competitor.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to make it to Tokyo because I was down with COVID. But it's just been incredible to watch. I have to say that they've been more tiring for me than I was an athlete.
Watching and observing as opposed to participating.
And running from one post to the other, one place to the other, I need a break after this one.
You need a holiday after this one. But, you know, and that's what I want to go back to, Abhinav, from the times that you were competing at the Olympics yourself, to winning the gold, to now watching this as an observer, sort of taking in the atmosphere, taking in all of the energy, but not having to feel the pressure that you feel when you're competing. I mean, what has that been like for you?
Well, it's been a little bit different. I mean, sometimes being a spectator is always also difficult. You know, I was at shooting my event, the Air Rifle competition. I was watching the Air Rifle men's final with President Bach, and our boy finished fourth, and I think I was close to a heart attack. And I was supposed to tell President Bach the rules of what was happening, and I don't even know what I was telling him, primarily because I was so nervous as a spectator. But it's been very interesting. But what I really...
Manu Bhaker,
yes, I mean, she's been incredible, but just before we get to her, it's also, I've been able to appreciate how the Olympics is such a unique event. It is the only event left on this planet Earth where the world comes together. And just seeing 206 countries come together, just seeing the atmosphere in the city, having the opportunity to visit the Olympic Village, which is probably the most unique place on Earth at the moment. 206 different countries and an Olympic refugee team all living together, but fighting it out in very tough competition on the field of play. But coming back, living peacefully with values of friendship and unity, And that sends a very, very, very inspiring message to the world.
Yeah, I'll get to the Olympic values that you just spoke of and what you're doing to take the Olympic values forward in India. But let's talk about India here at Paris 2024. And let's start with Manu Bhaker and what a spectacular run she's had.
Yes, absolutely amazing. I mean, to go back home with 2 bronze medals and a 4th place finish, it's been an incredible, incredible achievement for her. I'm so inspired and simply proud of her. I mean, from how she finished in Tokyo, to show the resilience, to show the character that she's displayed, to keep at it, to not give up, is an inspiring story for generations of Indians to come.
But equally inspiring, the story of Jaspal Rana, and a man you know very well.
Yes, I mean, Jaspal and I go back a long way. He and I were teammates, you know, for me, he's a wonderful coach. He may be a tough coach, but sometimes you need a tough coach. You know, in my career, I too had tough coaches who I sometimes didn't get along with, but just found a way to work with. But he's worked very well for Manu, and just want to send my congratulations to him for all the work that he's put in and for all what he's done for Indian shooting.
You know, you talked about Jaspal Rana and tough love is something that you've experienced as well. And I think it's sort of opened up this controversy on the back of what we've heard from Prakash Padukone saying that, look, the players need to do their best. You know, India has done all it can, the government has done all it can, the committees have done all they can, but the players need to do their best. And it evoked, you know, a reaction from both sides. One saying that he's speaking the truth, and the other saying that, look, you can't pull someone down when they're already feeling the heat. I want to understand from you, as an athlete who has competed at the Olympics, as someone who's deeply invested in the sport, deeply invested in ensuring that India does create champions. How do you read what Padukone has said, and what do you make of what he said?
Well, I think there's always a time to reassess. You know, in a couple of days, the games will be over, and we'll all go back with whatever we go back with. And I think it is only fair to reflect on what we've done well. I think there have been many things that we've done well. I think.
For instance?
I mean, Indian performances all around may not reflect on the medals table, but if you look at the performances of the athletes, they've been competitive in spectrum of sports. I mean, we've had 7 4th place finishes so far, and it could have very well been gone the other way. So the overall performances are much stronger. I mean, you had the women's table tennis team, for example, beating top-ranked teams and reaching where no table tennis team has ever reached. The shooting team, not just the 3 medals, but if you look at the overall performances, we had multiple finalists, and even the ones who didn't make the final had a very strong performance.
So what do you think has changed to ensure that we actually get a shot at the big league? And what do you think is left to be done to ensure that we get the medals? Because that's now the question.
Well, I think
that it's so far, but yet not far enough.
High-performance sport is a funny business to be in. It can never be broken down into black and white. There'll always be an element of grey in. There'll be always a little bit of an element of luck. And in a competitive event like the Olympics, which is so tough, I mean, a little bit here, a little bit there, makes all the difference. And I think we've made tremendous strides. I think support to athletes has been phenomenal. The government has done a great job in doing it. I think we just need to keep working on improving our systems, taking corrective measures where, you know, wherever they need to be taken. But on the whole, I think sport is on the rise, and I think overall the athletes have done well. May not reflect on the medals table as of today. Things may change in 2 days' time. But overall, I think the athletes have done very well. You know,
let's talk about the big heartbreak for India, and that is what happened as far as Vinesh Phogat is concerned. And you went and met her, you had a conversation with her. You know, while the post-mortem is underway on what happened, what could have been done differently, what went wrong, what wasn't done, and so on and so forth, from an athlete's perspective, from her perspective, and someone who's dealt with adversity, and someone who's you know, hit rock bottom and sort of risen up, what do you see her mental state at this point in time?
Obviously, she's devastated. can fully empathize with her. I can't even imagine what she would be going through. You know, I had heartbreaks in my sports career, but you know what she's gone through, I can't even understand. I met her, but I didn't even know what to tell her.
What did she say to you?
No, I mean, it was just general talk on on life, and how life can be unfair, and you know, sport sometimes can be brutal.
Did she have an assessment of what went wrong?
Oh, we didn't even get into that. But I just went to
offer your support.
Support to her and to be there for her. And I think that's what she needs at the moment. And I think the country must rally behind her in these difficult times. It's a very, very, very difficult period for her. And, you know, she's gone through a tough period with all what's happened in the course of the last year or so. And to come where she's come has been incredible. It has been absolutely incredible, and India really should be very, very, very proud of her.
No, absolutely. I think, you know, every Indian should be very proud of what she's been able to achieve. But, you know, in her story, there's many stories that come up. One, I think for the first time, the brutality of what an elite sport and competing at the Olympics means. I mean, 100 grams, that was the difference between her winning possibly the gold and being disqualified. I mean, I think for the first time, people truly understood the full force of what an athlete has to go through.
It's not an easy business here.
It's not.
It's tough, and you know, you put your heart and soul into it, and sometimes that is the difference between winning and not winning. Disqualification or being legitimate to be able to participate. Sport is hard. It's very, very, very hard, and that's why, you know, India must look at failure very differently. I think society on its whole looks down on failure in India, and I think it's high time that, you know, society and the youth of the country become more sporting in nature. You have to, yes, you want to go there and win, no question about that. You know, you want to put your best foot forward and be on the podium. But, you know, there are 10,000 odd athletes here, only 300 go back with gold medals. So the people who don't, they're not losers. They've gained, they've represented your country. There are only 10,000 athletes here in the whole of, they're the 10,000 best athletes on this planet. So you can imagine how brutal the competition is. You can imagine how tough that competition is. And I think we have to just look at failure very differently. Of course, we have to learn from it. We have to learn to fail well.
I want to pick up on what you said, which is, I think, so beautiful, because I don't think that people really truly appreciate or understand the value of that, failing well. And you've had a bunch of failures.
My life was a failure.
Okay. You also walked away with the Olympic gold, but and created history. But, you know, the idea of failing well, what did it take for you to be able to A, internalize that, and B, manifest that in the way that you operate, in the way that you function as a human being in your daily life?
You know, I had my times as well where I did not fail well, and I think those were the times when my self-worth was attached to where my name would appear on the ranking list of a sporting competition. And then I realized at one point of my career that I'm more than that. I am more than what just my exploits on the field of play. And my journey really became a journey of self-respect, about putting my best foot forward, about doing my best every day and looking myself into the mirror and asking myself the question, have I put my best foot forward? And if the answer was yes, and I had to be brutally honest with myself, I'd already won.
You know, speaking about the journey of athletes, and you spoke about what the athlete needs to learn from every experience of being out there on the field and off the field as well. But let's talk about the reforms, because in the case of Vinesh, there's a lot of now clamor, call for a review as far as the rules are concerned, especially when athletes are competing at this stage in consecutive matches, and what kind of allowances should be made, what degree of flexibility should be provided. I mean, how do you look at the reforms perhaps that are necessary from an athlete's perspective?
Well, I'm not an expert in wrestling, so I don't know the rules so well, but I had the opportunity to discuss it with many stakeholders here, and you know, from their perspective, they put these rules out with a certain thought. But for sure, I think what is important for every sport organization is to ensure that the well-being of the athlete remains at the heart and center of everything that is done. According to them, these rules have been put out with that thought in mind. So while I'm not an expert in the sport, I think from my perspective, the most important thing is the well-being and welfare of athletes. And I think I'm sure there will be a time when the world body would review and process what has happened, and if there are ways to improve regulations, then I'm sure that they would certainly.
But do you believe that there is a need for that? I mean, I'm not talking about this specifically, but in general, given what you were talking about, the toll that it takes on the athlete's mental well-being and mental health, physical health as well, especially when you're competing in consecutive matches. I mean, it's unimaginable to me to imagine that someone who's going to be competing possibly for an Olympic gold spends the night before in a sweatsuit trying to shed excess weight.
I mean, in weight-sensitive sports and weight categories, I mean, that is what they go through. That's what they go through. Weight management becomes a very, very critical aspect of it. And I think what the world body should try and do, and I think they are already doing that, is that, athletes should compete in their natural weight category.
Right.
I think that would ensure a more level playing field. It would ensure a more safety for the health aspects of the athletes. A lot of athletes, maybe of a higher natural weight, and then they try and cut down weight, and that
to be able to get a ticket
maybe giving them a competitive edge as well. Right. So I think that type perhaps needs to be looked at more carefully on how does one ensure a fairer balance which keeps the athletes' health and well-being at the foremost.
We're talking about mental health, and I know that you do a lot of work with the IOC, with the Athletes Commission, to focus on that. And outside of sport, I mean, building resilience and building mental, emotional resilience, I think, is a key today. And people are grasping with how they deal with that. How do you cope with that? I mean, how do you deal with the need for instant gratification, which is the culture that we've gotten used to in an era of YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. I mean, as someone who's working in this space, what has been your big learning, and what do you think we need to focus on?
Well, I think from an IOC Athletes Commission perspective and from the larger IOC's perspective, we've done a lot of work on mental health. For the first time ever at the Games, there is a space which has been created, which is called the Mind Zone. It is in the Olympic Village. It is on the first floor of the fitness center is on the ground floor, and the Mind Zone is on the second floor, to give a message that your mental well-being is equally important. And it's been a massive success. It's this quiet area for athletes to be able to disconnect a little bit. We have things like VR meditation. We have breathing techniques available for athletes to follow, and creative things like arts and culture. And this space has been a massive success because life in an Olympic Village is hard. It is a sensory overload. When you have 15,000 people living, highly charged people living in this Games Village, there's a lot of activity, and that can be overwhelming at times. And also with the added stress of competition, it can be a difficult place. So this space has been clearly designed for that, to give athletes a space, and it's been a massive success. We've had safeguarding officers available to athletes 24/7. We have a helpline which is available to athletes not just during the Paris Games, but it will be available for them for the next 4 years. So we've tried to do all we can, and to really make sure that we give equal amount of importance to the mental health aspects as we do towards the physical well-being of the athlete.
something I know that's very close to your heart, and that is to really bring the Olympic values to India and to bring it to the youth of the country. And you've started that with Odisha, and you've worked in partnership with the government in Odisha. And I know that here, you know, a lot of the work that you've been doing is actually on exhibit, showcasing what has happened in Odisha. Why do you think that that's important, and why do you believe that that could be a big cause for change?
It goes back to the initial conversation on how we have to look at sport differently, how we have to look at failure very differently. And the whole program is, of course, to make kids physically active, to imbibe the health benefits of sport, but most importantly, the ability for kids to imbibe values through sport. You know, sport teaches us so much. It teaches us a thing or two about winning, but more importantly, it teaches us how to lose. It teaches us a lot about integrity, about teamwork, about respect, about respecting rules, about respecting your own self, about respecting competitors. And these are all lessons that these young kids, not just in Odisha, but also now in Assam, are being able to go through it. And the program's been a big success in both states. And, you know, we are now gradually scaling it up. It's already, I think, going to be in 60,000 odd schools in Odisha, and similarly going further in Assam. So for me, it is a very, very important aspect on how sport can be used as a tool for nation building, as a way to guide society, to shape society. And I think sport has a very powerful role to play in the overall growth of our country. You know, economic success, we're all after economic success, especially, you know, your line of work only covers that. But, you know, the greatest economies of the world are also sporting giants. And I think they've become great economies because sport has been part and parcel of culture. You know, it teaches their society to be resilient, to fail well, to have that honesty, integrity, that teamwork, the work ethic needed. And I think sport has played an important role in all the successful lives of these people. And I think sport will have a very large role to play going forward back home.
You know, so as we look at possibly India 2036, which is the ambition and the aspiration that the government is working towards, but what you said, you know, that economic success is linked to the aspiration of a nation becoming a sporting powerhouse.
I said it the other way, by the way.
I know you said it. I know you said it the other way. I'm linking the two. You know, some of the measures that have already been taken, some of the reforms that have already happened, but what more do you believe needs to be done by the government, by the corporate sector, by civil society to ensure that we do emerge as not just a host possibly of the Olympics, but truly as a sporting powerhouse? I
think we need more young kids to play sport. I think we're a 1.4 billion population, but let's ask ourselves the question, how much of these 1.4 billion actually play sport? And if we come to that number, we're actually not doing that badly. So we need to give more opportunities to young people to just play sport for the sheer joy of playing sport, for us to become a healthier society. We're the youngest demographic in the world, but we also need to ensure that we are we have a healthy population, and sport can play a very important role. When you get more people to play sport, when sport becomes a culture, then performances at the elite level will become a byproduct, because you'll have more people investing a decade or two.
And so the medals you're saying,
becomes a byproduct. But if you just look at sport at the elite level, I mean, of course, we've been doing wonderfully to support athletes. We've had programs which have been running, but support 500 elite athletes, you'll pump money in. But sport is just, the nature of sport is that there will be more failure than success. And I think that playing population needs to increase. And I think the government has started initiatives, and I think there needs to be a long-term focus, because here you will not get any instant gratification. Here there will be no results coming in instantly.
It's a long
play.
Yeah.
But there has to be a start.
So before we end, the good news that's coming in, at least as far as the hockey match is concerned, that India has now bagged itself a medal, the bronze. You know, what's been your big takeaway, not just for India, but from Paris as far as the Olympic movement is concerned, because in many ways this is an incubator of new ideas on what the Olympics possibly for the future could look like.
I think it's been a very innovative games. It's been a more urban games, and I think it's been a more youthful games, and that's coming through. And I think the people have really, really enjoyed it. I've been to so many events, and you know, just the enthusiasm of the people has just been incredible, and that's just been such a joy to watch.
Breakdance, would you have liked to compete in that category?
I was never a talented athlete, so I'll pass on that one, but it's a great joy to watch them.
It certainly is a great joy. Abhinav, thanks so much. We wish you the very best of luck with everything that you're doing, and thank you so much for spending time with us here. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up the Paris Diaries here on CNBC-TV18. Many thanks for watching. We'll take a break and come back with a lot more.